Throughout the season, you've heard us talk about how the Islanders prospect pool is near the bottom of the NHL. Today, we'll take a deep dive and talk about why that's true and what, if anything, the Islanders can do about it. We've got all that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. There is no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. We have got a lot to discuss on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, send us an email. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all off-season long. Trade rumors, hirings, firings, free agency, the draft, if it's happening to the New York Islanders, we'll have it for you here on Locked On Islanders, and it's always great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or any time. Everydayers know, and I think most Islander fans know, that the New York Islanders farm system is considered at or near the bottom of the NHL, depending on which expert you ask. And when I say that, that is not to say that the Islanders do not have players in their prospect pool who cannot eventually contribute to the team's success. But what it does mean is that right now, the New York Islanders do not have anybody in their prospect pool that you would consider someone who's going to have a huge impact at the NHL level. I'm talking about a top six forward or a top pair defenseman, a player who would be described as a difference maker, who is right about now just on the cusp of being ready to play regularly in the National Hockey League. The Islanders, according to all experts, do not have that player in their system as of right now. And then, you know, the other aspect of it is just how they compare to other teams around the league. And, you know, late in the season, it was in March, The Athletic, Scott Wheeler, who is their prospect guy, did a list of the top 75 drafted NHL prospects. So these are the top 75 players and, you know, who have been already drafted by an NHL team, but are not regularly in the NHL right now. And they went to the top 75 and also added 40, count them, 40 honorable mentions. You know how many Islanders were in the top 75? That would be 0. Now, just to give you an idea, the Columbus Blue Jackets had 5 prospects on the list of the top 75. There were 4 teams in the NHL that didn't have anyone in this top 75. The Golden Knights, Panthers, Senators, and Islanders. Obviously, the Panthers and the Golden Knights, you know, Vegas won a cup last year. Florida still alive. They were in the Cup final last year and are still alive right now in the Final Four here, conference finals. The Senators are a younger team than the Islanders overall, but they are the only team besides the Islanders who did not have a player in the top 75 or in the 40 honorable mentions. And just to give you an idea, basically with 32 teams in the NHL, the top 115 prospects as of March included 0 New York Islanders. When you have a team like the Islanders do, where Anders Lee, Brock Nelson, J.G. Pageau, Kyle Palmieri, Casey Cizikas, Cal Clutterbuck, Matt Martin, all on the wrong side of 30. Robert Bortuzzo, Mike Riley, Semyon Varlamov, Scott Mayfield. All of these players are 30 and over. And by the way, Ryan Pollock and Adam Pelech getting real close. Okay? All of these players are 30 or older. Pelech and Pollock getting close to 30. They're 29 plus. And you have no top prospects in your pipeline right now to replace them. And again, I have been critical of Lou Lamoriello at times, and I think, I try to be fair. I respect Lou Lamoriello, what he accomplished in New Jersey for sure. He's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He belongs in the Hockey Hall of Fame. But I just don't agree with his approach to this team right now. And you look at the trades, we mentioned that Lou Lamoriello has traded away the last 4 first-round picks for the Islanders. Now, as of right now, they still have the 2024 pick. We're a little more than, we're about, 6-7 weeks away from the draft, and we're going to have wall-to-wall coverage of it here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. But when you're talking about having that many people unavailable, traded away 4 straight draft picks, 4 first-round draft picks. And I could look at each of the trades and say, yeah, there were benefits to it. I mean, has J.G. Pageau been helpful to the Islanders' success since they acquired him? Yeah, especially the first year or 2 that he was with the team. Kyle Palmieri, 30-goal scorer this year. Can't complain about his production when he's been healthy. Bo Horvat, no doubt he has helped this team. 30-plus goals this year. Alexander Romanov, young, one of the few, in fact, the only really young player who had not yet reached his potential at the time the Islanders acquired him. And he's been a second pair, steady force as a second pair defenseman. But that in and of itself isn't enough when all these trades and all these first round picks that you shipped away still never get you more than being a fringe playoff team. Even when the Islanders made their runs to the conference final, they barely made the playoffs. In fact, in the bubble year, they wouldn't have made the playoffs. I mean, okay, they were behind in points. They were right there in point percentage when COVID hit. So, yeah, and the NHL expanded the playoff pool and the Islanders made it, went on the long run. But this team has never been considered a Stanley Cup favorite. In fact, I would venture to say they've never been top 10 in, who you would consider to be a Stanley Cup favorite. And as a result, trading away 4 straight first-round picks to keep an aging roster together and add just enough to it to squeak into the playoffs most of the time is not a good long-term strategy, because what's going to happen if Lou Lamoriello doesn't make changes and get this team younger, faster, and more skilled? These guys on the roster are going to age out, and there'll be nobody in the pipeline to replace them. And look, I like guys like Alex Jeffries, guys like Isaiah George, Callie Odelius. I'm not saying these are not players who at some point could help the Islanders down the line. Matthew Maggio, William Dufour. But even those guys who are among the top prospects in the Islanders system are considered third or fourth line players at best by most NHL scouts. And the other guys like Isaiah George and Callie Odelius and Alex Jeffries are younger and are considered still at least a year or two away from being ready for the NHL. And they may not be, again, impact players, top six forwards, snipers, big, 45, 50 assists a year kind of players, or even top pair defensemen, depending on the player. It is not a good way to build a team. And when you add the no trade clauses that we talked about earlier in the week, and you add the age of the team and some of the bad contracts that Lou Lamoriello handed out, not just in amount of money per year, but in length, and sometimes both, that's when you get into trouble as an organization. And that's the problem we're seeing right now with the New York Islanders, and it needs to be addressed. This offseason is pivotal for this franchise to try to get younger, faster, more skilled, and to try to rebuild some of the prospect pool so that you have players who down the road can replace the guys on the roster right now as they slow down and retire. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We'll continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders with the captain, Anders Lee. We'll also have a former Islanders player who was a teammate of Maxim Tsyplakov in Russia, and he'll talk a little bit about his thoughts on Tsyplakov. Plus, for our Islanders birthday of the day, an offensive defenseman who was with the team in the early to mid 2000s. Let's see if you can guess who this Finnish defenseman is. All that coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. There is no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed Data US. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we continue our player-by-player look at the season that was. We'll talk about how these players did last year, what they did well, what they needed to work on. Plus, what their outlook is going forward, assuming that they remain with the Islanders organization. Yesterday, we did Simon Holmstrom, as everydayers are aware. We've also done Alexander Romanov, Kyle Palmieri, and a number of other players. And if you missed any of them, just go back and check out some of our previous shows over the last week and a half. Today, the captain, Anders Lee. Lee played in 81 games this year. He's 33, will turn 34 early in July. In 81 games, 20 goals, 37 points, and he was a +2, ended up with 68 penalty minutes, 2 game-winning goals. Essentially, 5 of his 20 goals came on the power play and averaged only 15 minutes and 34 seconds per game of ice time. That is his lowest number since 2015, 2016. And, 54 block shots, 176 hits. And, that is an increase of 51 hits from a year ago. And I think part of that has to do with his switch from being on the first line most of the time to playing on the third line most of the time. He also saw his shot total go down by almost 30. He had 214 shots on goal a year ago. This past season, only 185. The 20 goals, his lowest total in a non-shortened season since, again, 2015, 2016. His assist total, also his lowest total since 2014, 2015, which was his first full season in the league, again, excluding injury-shortened or COVID-shortened seasons. And I think the issue with Anders Lee at this point, and he played well in the playoffs, not going to take that away from him, had a goal and 3 assists, so 4 points in 5 games, although he was a -4 in those 5 games. I think the big issue about Anders Lee now is he is slowing down physically, wearing down and slowing down, and he wasn't fast as far as his skating speed was concerned to begin with. He is no longer really able to keep up with Bo Horvat and Matthew Barzal on the top line. And, Lee is going to get his goals by going to the dirty areas, setting screens, deflecting shots, getting rebounds, tip-ins. That's how he gets his goals. If he scored 20 goals, I doubt that all of them added together, the distance between where he touched the puck and the goal line is more than 30 feet. And that's not a negative about Anders Lee. It just reflects the kind of game he needs to play. And quite honestly, we are a long way away from the 40-goal season he had in 2017, 2018, and even the 28-goal seasons he had over the last 2 years. Lee is earning $7 million per season right now on his contract, and he has 2 seasons left. Would the Islanders consider buying him out or trying to trade him? They'd probably have to retain a good amount of salary in order to move him. He also has a modified no-trade clause where he could say, there are 15 teams he doesn't want to play for. I think the Islanders should consider either trading or buying out Anders Lee, but I don't think that's something that Lou Lamoriello will entertain. In fact, Maxim Tsyplakov, who we talked about, over the last couple of days since the Islanders signed him, and who we'll talk about a little bit more in our third segment, they say his style is kind of similar in a lot of ways to Anders Lee, and he's obviously about 8 years younger, give or take. If you add him to the lineup, does that mean you can move on from Anders Lee? Yeah, Tsyplakov is not proven at the NHL level, but, Lee is going to be a third or fourth line kind of a guy going forward. He still can probably help you on that second power play unit occasionally, but he is not producing at anywhere near a $7 million a year mark. And I think, if he returns, you're looking at a bottom six guy who can pitch in on the second power play unit and help the team, but not at $7 million a year and not at the level that we have become accustomed to in the past by Anders Lee. As a captain, he seems to have the respect of his teammates, but he does not seem to be a vocal leader. And at times, I know a lot of listeners and viewers have questioned his leadership abilities. And part of that may have been due to his struggles on the ice. When you're not producing, it's a little harder to get guys to follow you because you're not getting the job done yourself. Again, if it was up to me, and as much as I really like Anders Lee as a player and respect him, I think it is time to start exploring the possibility of moving on from Lee, whether it's a buyout or a trade. But I'm not optimistic that that's what Lou Lamoriello is going to do. If he comes back, he's a bottom six guy, probably also on that second power play unit. We'll see how this plays out. But as of right now, it's diminishing returns most likely from Anders Lee at a very high price. We've got more to get to on today's show. We will discuss some comments made by a former Islander who was teammates with Maxim Tsyplakov in Russia, plus our Islanders birthday of the day, all that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So we had a little interview with former Islanders forward Shane Prince. And Prince, if you remember, had spent parts of 3 years with the Islanders and was a helpful part of their 2016 playoff run. He has now been a teammate in the KHL with Maxim Tsyplakov. And here's some of the things that he had to say about the 25-year-old Russian who the Islanders were able to sign. And think about this. They were able to sign him despite the fact that supposedly as many as 12 teams altogether, so 11 other teams, were interested in signing Tsyplakov. So Prince said he believes that Tsyplakov can make the adjustment to the NHL fairly quickly. Why? Well, here's the quote. As reported by The Athletic, he really has a game built for North America more than Europe. He's a power forward who plays a gritty style. It's hard to find a player over there, meaning the KHL, who plays the way he does. He's physical. He's always in the corners. He's got the frame and the skill set to succeed over here. And then he was asked about why this year, 2023-2024, was a breakout year for Maxim Tsyplakov. And here's what he said. The coaching staff liked Max and put him in different situations to succeed. That's how hockey is. You start gaining some confidence and you start playing up to your potential. He got a little more opportunity and he ran with it. It's not a high-scoring league. 30 goals is no joke there. That's elite. So, and then a final quote from Prince. It's a great organization, and Max will be a real asset for them. I don't know if it'll be a fast transition, but I was saying all year in Moscow that some NHL team needed to sign him, and I'm glad it was the Islanders. So, Shane Prince with some nice little quotes about Maxim Tsyplakov, and that is certainly good news as far as the New York Islanders are concerned. And hopefully, again, he sort of makes that transition. One other thing I wanted to mention, Islanders broadcaster Brendan Burke going to call 2 series of games for the New York Yankees in June. So, again, these are at home. It'll be June 18th to 23rd against the Orioles and Braves. Certainly wishing Burke the best, but don't want to lose Brendan Burke don't want him to leave broadcasting Islander games, but obviously, that's kind of selfish on my part as someone who covers and follows the Islanders and is a fan of the Islanders. I certainly wish him the best of any opportunity that he can take advantage of. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day, and today is the 49th birthday of former Islanders defenseman Jani Niinimaa, the Finnish native, originally a second-round draft pick of the Philadelphia Flyers back in 1993. Didn't come to North America till the 96-97 season, and he played 2 years in Philadelphia before being traded to the Edmonton Oilers at the trade deadline. Stayed with Edmonton through the trade deadline in 02-03 when he was dealt to the Islanders, played with the Islanders in the rest of 02-03, 03-04, and then part of the 05-06 season. Again, the 04-05 season canceled due to a lockout by the owners. Later, after leaving the Islanders, he played for the Dallas Stars and Montreal Canadiens before heading back to Europe to finish out his hockey career. He retired after a year in Sweden in 2012-2013. 741 career NHL games for Niinimaa, 54 goals, 319 points, 733 penalty minutes, add 3 goals, 24 points, and 60 penalty minutes in 59 Stanley Cup playoff games. One of his better games as an Islander, how about March 12th, 2004, at the Arrowhead Pond in Anaheim, the Islanders visiting the then Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. Rick DiPietro, the goalie for the Islanders, Martin Gerber in between the pipes for the Ducks. And in the first period, the Islanders take a 1-0 lead on a goal by Cliff Ronning. On our Islanders' birthday of the day, Jani Niinimaa had the primary assist, Mariusz Czerkowski the other. 1-0 Islanders after a Sammy Paulson goal tied it late in the second. Our Islanders' birthday of the day, Jani Niinimaa scores the go-ahead goal late in the second period. Kenny Jonsson and Cliff Ronning with the assist. An empty net goal by Dave Scatchard clinched a 3-1 win for the Islanders. For Jani Niinimaa, a goal, an assist. He was a +2. He had 2 penalty minutes, had the game-winning goal on his only shot, and played 27 minutes and 3 seconds of ice time. Niinimaa, good two-way defenseman who could eat up minutes and get the job done. Shame he only had 1 full season and 2 partial seasons on the island, but during his tenure, he was indeed a solid performer for this hockey club. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we'll continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders. Scott Mayfield will look at his injury-abbreviated season and discuss what his prospects are if he can be healthy and start next season ready to go. So we'll talk about all of that and all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.